part of the product management team for Autonomous Data Warehouse. Yes, Francisco, good, excellent, everything's live. That's great news. So today, what I want to do is go through a step-by-step guide to our Oracle Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud. So this is me. I'm part of the product management team. If you've got any questions, I think I should, I'm hoping, from this setup. Forgive me, this is all completely new to me. I will hopefully be able to see them in some window, chat window, I think here. If not, here's all my contact details. Feel free to give me a call, email me, Twitter me, respond to blog posts, etc. Now, I think everything I'm going to show you is going to be production software, but just in case if I get a question or stray into topics where we're considering concepts, requirements that are on our roadmap, then this just covers me for what we're going to do. It's quite a long slide deck, this. There's a lot of information in here. I'm probably not going to get through all of this, but this is just to let you know when I publish the slide deck through Francisco, this is all the information that you're going to get. So I just want to give you a quick overview. What is this product? What is Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud? And then getting started, creating a new autonomous data warehouse, connecting to it, querying it, some of the data sets that we provide to you free out of the box, going in through our web interface and start working straight away using SQL notebooks, and then if we get through to it, scaling it, monitoring it, etc. But if we don't get all through it, don't panic. There's a whole series of slides in here. Let's press on. When we delivered this Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud product, this service, which was in March, I think, this year, Larry launched it. We had three objectives. We wanted to make the data warehouse experience extremely easy. So we wanted people, business users, DBAs as well, project teams to be able to deploy a data warehouse very, very fast. And we wanted you, having set this up, to be able to just load and run your queries. So the whole process of, as you'll see today, creating a warehouse, getting data in, running queries, etc., is very, very straightforward. We don't get into a lot of the standard Oracle setup and configuration issues around the database. And when we go to build schemas, etc., there's no need to define indexes, no need to create partitions, etc. when we're loading data. It's all done for you. It's all completely managed, an autonomous environment, if you like. It's extremely fast. So we're basing this underneath, if you looked at when you're running this service, the hardware platform that you're sitting on, it's Exadata. So those of you that have experienced Exadata technology, you've got that in your own data center. That's the platform that we're using, and that delivers us extremely fast performance. Most importantly, from a business perspective, as you want to add more resources, whether that's CPUs because you're running very intensive queries and you'd like them to go a little bit faster, or you need to add more storage because you want to put more data in it, you want to be able to do that in a flexible way, i.e. not be tied to specific sizes. Normal approach with most vendors is to sort of give you t-shirt sizes. So you start with small, medium and large, and you scale in small, medium and large blocks, and those add pre-configured chunks of hardware. In our environment, you just simply select what it is that you want. If you want more CPUs, you add more CPUs. If you want more storage, you add more storage. If you want fewer CPUs or less storage, you can do that as well. But most importantly, when you do that and we reconfigure your autonomous data warehouse, there's no downtime. So if you're running queries, they still run. Everything keeps on going. So this is a fully, completely managed end-to-end service by Oracle. And you'll see here the interface. I'm going to flick over in a minute, and actually we're going to start, and I'm going to take you through the whole process. Sorry, I need some coffee here. It's 1 a.m. in the morning, UK time. Okay, so provisioning new databases. This UI will take you through the whole provisioning process, setting up a data warehouse, and you're going to see it's very, very fast. It's not your typical, if you're used to doing an on-premise Oracle database deployment, this is going to be very, very, very different to you. And it's extremely fast to do it as well. We can have a new instance up in about a minute from you deciding, okay, I'm going to create a new one. From within here, the management console, we can grow, we can add more resources, we can shrink our resources depending on our particular requirements, whether it's more CPUs, fewer CPUs, and so on. All of the patching and upgrading is done by us. So there's no need for you to get involved in, accessing support, finding out if there's any upgrades or patches to go through, bringing them down, installing them all, rolling them out, etc. All of that is taken care of by us. The backup process is fully automated. So as you'll see from when we go through the create process, we don't ask you anything about the backup process. Where's the backup's going to go? What's the frequency? It's all managed for you. The recovery is fully wizard driven for you. Simply select one of the backups, say which point in time you want to go to, kick it off, and the process will manage itself. If you want to do any of the processes outside of the UI that you see here, you can do that via REST APIs. So you're not tied to our management console, our infrastructure. You can, if you want, go ahead and automate some of these steps using the REST APIs. So I said, it's what we call a load and go service. So there's no real tuning, etc. to do. All of the tuning is managed internally. As you load data, we optimize the environment to make sure that when you run queries, we run them in the most efficient way. So there's no real special database expertise required to take data and load it. So no need to worry about which table space do I put it in? How do I partition it? Should it be compressed? Should it be in memory? How's parallel execution going to work? All of that is taken care of for you by the database. You simply point us at a data file, you load the data. There's some new packages in Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud for specifically managing data loads. And the advantage of that is that you're going to get extremely good performance straight out of the box. Now, obviously you want to know what's going on, and we provide a very simple, very user-friendly web-based console that you can see here on the page that will help you understand what's going on your system and how the resources are being used and who is using them in terms of which group. So there are built-in resource management plans. Again, part of the autonomous system, we give you 3 resource groups, and you can assign users to those resource groups and then monitor how those resource groups are using the Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud. As I said, it's completely elastic. So you define to us exactly how much compute or storage you need, and then you grow or shrink as you need. There are no predefined blocks or shapes. When you do the scaling, everything happens online. And most importantly, or interestingly, you get to say a Friday afternoon, you know there's no activity going on the weekend, you can actually turn your compute nodes off. So you can go in and shut down your Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud, at which point the billing for compute stops. So we don't charge you for that weekend session. And then on Monday, you can come in, switch your compute back on, and the billing restarts. And it restarts instantly, which is very good. Okay, The data warehouse itself is, our autonomous data warehouse cloud is not an isolated thing. You've got lots of, in a typical data warehouse environment, lots of additional elements that you want to put into this. So, things like your third-party BI tools, your data integration tools, your ETL tools, all of those capabilities where you've got these, you can either run those on-premise or in the cloud, and as long as they will use the secure wallet connection style, either directly through a secure wallet or through SQLnet, that service will then be able to talk directly to the autonomous data warehouse cloud. Obviously, a lot of our cloud services are already pre-configured. So things like Analytics Cloud Service, Golden Gate, Data Integration Service, all of those services have dedicated connect to autonomous data warehouse buttons or icons within their consoles. But generally, anything where you connect through SQLnet, JDBC, ODBC, as long as those services are familiar with, can cope with secure wallets, that's how you're going to get in. So what does the whole thing look like? So obviously you're going to have your data warehouse instance, the management console for monitoring or setup, configuration, etc. That's provided. We also provide you with a built-in SQL notebook tool, web-based, browser-based tool called OracleMania. SQL Developer, you'll connect straight to that. There are various versions that you can use to do this that have built-in features that are dedicated to autonomous data warehouse cloud. Version, I think, 17.4 onwards. I think the latest is 18.1. 18.1 has lots of new wizards, etc., that are dedicated to cloud-based data loading. So if you haven't got to 18.1 yet, this is a good reason to step up to that. In addition to the autonomous data warehouse cloud service itself, you also want to think about using the object store. So we have our own Oracle Object Store where you can put files. You can take your dump files, your data pump files from your existing systems, move those to the object store, and then, or staging files, put those in the object store, and then do a cloud to cloud, if you like, data load. So it's a very elegant, optimized, efficient data loading process. And of course, you can, through data integration services, SQL Developer, also load from on-premise files and push those into autonomous data warehouse cloud. But for most of your production day-to-day operations, your fastest way of pushing data into autonomous data warehouse cloud is to put it up into the object store. If you then want to query, we provide out of the box a free set of licenses for data visualization desktop. Those come with ADW, and at the moment that works Windows platform only. But that is a desktop tool for getting access and being able to query. Oracle Analytics Cloud is a step-up service that you can add on, and of course you've got all of the standard, third-party BI, Oracle BI services on cloud compute, or you can connect your BI systems from your on-premise systems directly to autonomous data warehouse cloud. Oops. Okay, provisioning a database. So how do we do this? If you're used to setting up your own database on-premise, you'll know about all the installation guide steps that you need to go through. This is a little different. All we're going to ask you is 4 questions. Very straightforward. What do you want to call this database? How many CPUs do you want? How much storage do you want? And give us a password. That's it. And then your data warehouse is provisioned. As soon as you hit that blue button at the bottom, away we go. And let's see if we can do this. So hopefully, let me just quickly check. Yep, okay. Hopefully everyone can see this. So this is where you go, cloud.oracle.com. And first thing you've got to do is sign on. Oh, sign in. Is it going to work? Yes. Okay, so when you sign up for a cloud account, we will give you what we call a tenant name. And for me, that is that. And then we will set you up with an account and a password. You sign in and you will land up blank. There's nothing here. Okay, where do you go? So the first thing I'm going to do is create an instance. Now on here we go to all services, and we don't tie you down to specific cloud services. So when you sign up for a free account, which you can do, you get access to everything. So you can try anything and everything with this. So I'm going to create an autonomous data warehouse cloud arrive at a particular environment. So here's my tenancy, here's my data center. Now actually I can switch between 3 systems. So I can go to US in Ashburn, US Phoenix. I'm going to switch over to Frankfurt. When I build an autonomous data warehouse cloud, I'm typically going to create maybe things like development environments, maybe some QA, maybe some training, or maybe there's a finance group, a marketing group, and you want to be able to organize these things. So we give you what's called compartments. So I'm going to go to Frankfurt, and you can see here, I've already created one, but let's go ahead and create a new one. So if you wanted to, now all I'd actually have to do is give it a password and we're good to go. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this. So this is my display name, which is going to appear here in my, let's call it that. And I'll call this let's keep it at 1 and 1. So next thing I need is a password. This is quite unusual. So you're going to have to do 12 to 60 characters. One's got to be uppercase, one's got to be lowercase. And I think we have to number in there. So I'm hoping if I go over here, that somewhere I have a password already pre-built, which will be useful. So let me do that and that. Okay, so that gets me to this point. I can now just hit create. So you'll notice here, there's, okay, which database version do I want? I'm not going to ask you that. What type of environment do I want? Do I want Linux? Do I want Windows? I'm not going to ask you that. It's very, very straightforward. Which database options do you want? Do you want advanced analytics? Not asking you that. Do you want partitioning, rack? All of those standard cloud setup and configuration issues all go. So it's basically 4 questions, that's it. And now we're off provisioning. And if I go in here, I can now start monitoring exactly what's up to. You can see here, my box is orange. We're starting to provision. Once I'm up and running, let me just quickly come out of that. Let's go on here. We have a service console, so I'm just going to quickly click on that and go in here. And I've already got this set up, so we can zoom through this. Oh, that should be. Just so I can sign in. Okay, there we go. So this one I set up a while ago. It's 1 terabyte. You can see I've been running some queries, etc. on it. If I want to go in and see in a little more detail what's been going on, you can see all sorts of statements here. But the overview page gets me in, shows me what's going on. Here's my account details, my APAC demo user, my environment, and that's my basic management console. So let's quickly go back here, and hopefully if we go back here, let's see where we are. So we're still provisioning. Let's bring that up. Okay, I'm just gonna let that run on a bit. So in here, you'll get all of the step-by-step guides. So I've put all of this information in here. So when you get the slides, you'll be able to follow this through. Okay, next step, how do we connect? So normally, once you set up your database, you would get the host name, all those details, set up your SQLnet configuration in SQL Developer. This is a little different. So what we need to do, obviously we want to connect SQL Developer. What we need to do is go through and create a connection and build a connection. So what I'm going to do is, this is still provisioning. It seems to be this sort of webcast software seems to be creating a bit of a slowdown in the response time here. So I come into my console. So I'm going to come from my page, open my service console again, and that's going to bring me in here. There's an administration tab. So if I click on here, I can reset my administrator password. If I want to take an existing schema and do a data pump export and data pump import that in, and that data import process will create the right schema, the right frame and shape of schema that is supported by Autonomous Data Warehouse Client, Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud. You download this instant client. So there's a special data pump import that will help create the right set of instructions for building your schema within an autonomous environment. So you'll need this client. Hopefully we'll look at ML users in a minute. First thing, most important thing, we need to get some client credentials. So when I come in here, I'm going to give it a password. Ooh, get rid of that. And I download a file. So I'm just going to save that file. Okay, so I've now got, hopefully, if I go to my downloads, I should have, if I can go over here, you'll see I have something called, let's get rid of that, APAC wallet. I actually downloaded it yesterday. So I've got this zip file. If I open the zip file, let's quickly show you what's in it. It's actually got all the security details. So we've got things like SQLnet. So if you're going to connect with SQLnet, there's various setup information that we need within SQLnet to tell it, okay, this is a secure connection, and the relevant TNS file with the details of the various connections for each resource group. And then if you want to connect with other systems, if you want to use other applications like Java or using JDB, can't wait for SQL, I should have started this before. So I'm using the very latest version of SQL Developer, which is on OTM, which is 18.1. And there we go. Okay, so I've already set up some files in here. So you will see on here, if I do properties, you will see that what I've done is create an admin account and put my password in. Let me just quickly save that, save the password. So I've got a completely built up connection there. So what I'm going to do, just to show you how this works, I'll create a completely new one. Let's call it demo. So I'm going to connect with my admin user. Let's save that password. So normally in here, you're going to set up SID, etc., and we go to the TNS file and pull all that out. What we can do here now, if you've got version, I think it's 17.3 or 17.4, this came in, you get Cloud PDB. So you select that, and then I can go in here and select my zip file, and magically I give it the password. So when I was on my management console back here, remember when I clicked on here and it popped up this and I said password, that's what I'm going to use. So when I circulate that file to my users, my developers, my ETL team, my BI project team that are going to use this wallet file, I just send them that password I've just defined. And in here, what we'll see is I have some other people working in this group, so I've actually got some additional systems here. But you'll see here, APAC demo is my environment, and I've got 3 resource groups that I can work with, medium, high, and low. So let's say I'm going to go with medium. What does this mean? As I said, when you're on the management console, I haven't run all sorts of different queries yet, so it's not that easy to see. But we allocate different resources, different levels of parallel execution, and obviously you can then work with high, obviously takes the most parallel resources. APAC medium is going to give me a slightly lower level of parallel resources compared to high, and low is going to just run everything serially. The level of those resources is all determined by how many CPUs you provisioned. And the sort of the breakout of how all that's configured, that's all in the PowerPoint. So when you get this PowerPoint, you'll be able to see, okay, if I had, say, a 16 CPU system, how would high, medium, and low work out in terms of resources, and how many queries could I run before I start queuing, and so on and so forth. So that's all in there. So let's go with medium. Let's save that. Let's test it. Fingers crossed. Yay, success. Good. So let's connect. Let's go through it. Okay, so I'm in. So we now have a connection to our system. I wonder how we're doing on the other one. So let's go back up here. See how we're doing. Yay! There we go. So there's our new system we just created. So that's up and running. So it's created. I've got 1 CPU. I've got 1 terabyte of storage. As I said, don't forget, we didn't ask you anything about backups, which version you wanted, which database options you wanted installing. All of that's taken care of. Backups, we will automatically back the system up for you. There's a 60-day rolling backup process that's up and running automatically. So later on today, I could come back in here and I'll find, I think if we go back to the other one, if I go back to my previous instance, this one, you should see that full initiated backup. So this has already gone through. So it's from me creating it, it started a full backup in the background. So nothing I had to do. And then we're starting to run incremental backups. All of that happens transparently in the background for me, all autonomously. It's nothing I need to do. The storage for that all goes to that cloud storage, the object storage. All of this gets pushed in. And that's sort of, if you like, included in the price. So we give you 60 days of rolling windows for backups, and we'll take care of the space for that. You can, if you're going to do something within the system, maybe you want to create a manual backup first, just before you do anything. Oh, I've got emails coming in already. Let me just quickly try and here. So if I want to, I can create a manual backup and I just give it a name. Obviously, I have to configure my own object store bucket, but we have documentation that'll explain how you do that for you. At that point, we will charge you for object storage. But probably what we expect, every user, 60 days of rolling backup should be sufficient. So back in here, what I get access to, obviously I can start creating new users in here. There's a new role that we provide called DW role that will allow you to create users, give them all the required privileges to go in and create things in Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud, go into the management console, so on and so forth. But we also give you a couple of schemas. So if I do select star from sh.channels, you're used to the example schemas. Help, wouldn't it? We provide you with the sales history schema. So if you want to do some quick queries, just do some testing, maybe provide some training environment for your users to get them into this, help explain it. This schema, SH, and the channels, there's customers, there's products, it's a standard style schema. I'll give you some more information on that in a minute. This comes built in. So as soon as you create your autonomous data warehouse, you get access to the sales history schema. There's also another schema, which is a bit bigger, which is the star schema benchmark that a lot of vendors provide, that allows you to have a huge system. I think it's got something like 1 billion transactions or something in it. It's a very big schema. And as I say, it's used for doing a series of benchmark queries. So if you want to, say, do a performance test with this versus, say, your on-premise system, you can take that schema, install it in your on-premise, and then run a preset group of queries that will simulate a normal set of BI operations, and you can see the performance for your system, say, versus ADW. And that's called SSB. So there's another schema called SSB, and you can access that. So we have this whole series of channels. I'm connected, so this is all looking good. I now have the ability to load data. For loading, we have some fairly simple new wizards. So if I go in here and say, okay, I want to do a new table. Sorry, not a new table. I want to import some data. The new import wizard will allow you to go to that cloud object store and pull data in from that cloud object store as a file. And when you set up the cloud object store, there's information in the PowerPoint about how to do this. You create an authorization in the same way we did before, and then we can just load data in. Of this, trying to get through this whole presentation, again, I'm just going to do some shortcuts. So I've created a whole series of these. All the screenshots are here, so you can go through this stuff yourself. As I said, there's information here about, okay, what does high, medium, and low do? I'll let you walk through that. You can create new users. So if I want to create a whole new user, sales history has already been created by us for you. You just grant this one role, DW role. That's all you need. So there's no, connect and resource and all of that stuff that you used to do before. One thing, DW role, your users are ready to get rolling, and that's all you need. So we've simplified that whole process. So there is a whole new process for loading data. You can either load data via SQLnet using either your ETL scripts, SQL loader from your local file system, SQL developer will do that for you, or you can load directly from the Oracle Object Store. And we have a new PL SQL package in 18C called DBMS_cloud that will do all that loading for you. Now, from an object store perspective, you can load data in, and we use SQL Loader to do this. So any Oracle file loader, SQL Loader compliant file format will do. We have other file formats on the roadmap, such as Hadoop file format, so you'll be able to reach through to say Big Data Cloud, etc., or take Big Data Cloud file formats and push those through to the object store and load them from there. But we support a number of object stores. So if you've already got files, say, in Amazon S3, or you've got them in Microsoft Azure's object store, as well as the Oracle Object Store, you can use and point this package, DBMS_cloud, the data loading process, to those object stores, and we'll load that data directly into Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud for you. So what it does is it effectively creates an external table in the same way that you would do, yourself. It will automate this whole process for you, create this, do the load, manage all of the bad files, the log file details for you, set that up, clean up itself afterwards and give you the result, including all the log files, etc. And if any bad data comes in, we'll put that, if you go through SQL Developer, it will put that into the object store for you, and then you can modify that file and then just simply point SQL Developer at that bad file and reload the corrected information. So when you go to, if you're going to load from the object store, as opposed to loading from, say, an on-premise file, something, say, on your desktop computer, you need to give us a password. You need to authorize your ADW process to be able to access your object store credentials. So we have this thing within the DBMS Cloud package called Create Credential. Once you've gone onto the object store and you've created that credential, it will give you a password, what's called a Swift password. And there's similar setups for Azure and on Amazon. You create the credential with your username and password, and then once you've got that, let's say you have a file called channel 3, that's your data file, and you've got a bucket on the object store called demo data. You can then, in this case, my demo data is sitting in my Ashburn data center. So remember, I switched over from Ashburn, where I started, to Frankfurt. We obviously have similar object stores in Frankfurt, Ashburn, Phoenix, etc. You can load from any object store in those data centers into your Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud. So I could, in Frankfurt, point to my object store in Ashburn if I need to. And this is the copy data. So this is going to create a new table called channels. Here's the object store credential that I created here that links to my tenant name, where my object store is, and the Swift password that I create from the object store. And then in a similar way that you do with SQL Loader, you just pass us in a key value pair JSON style how we're going to manage that load process. Ignore missing columns. True. Do we remove the quotes? Yes, true. So on and so forth. If you do this through SQL Developer, it takes care of all of this for you, generates the relevant data. But if you want to do it manually yourselves, this is, if you like, is a template of how you would do it. And then you'll get a load table called user load operations that will give you some information about the files that you've loaded. So you can see here that I loaded channels twice. The first time it failed, it created a log file here, it created a bad file here, and then the second time it completed. So I actually got 5 rows loaded, and so obviously there'd be nothing in the bad, and the log file tells me what's going on. So when you load data through that, it's very easy then to go in. SQL Developer again's got a very nice interface for handling this. Gives you all of the feedback about your status of your job, how it's finished, how many records were loaded, and so on and so forth. But if you do it manually, you simply query this table to give you the information, and then you can query your copy log file or your copy bad file. In these cases, these are tables actually inside Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud that will give you the information about that load. I think I might be running out of time, so I'm going to press on quickly. You can load data, or you can leave data in place. So if you don't want to load the data, if in fact you want to do sort of like a data lake approach, where you have object files, you've got data files in Azure, you've got some data files in S3, you've got some data files in Oracle Object Store, and all you want to be able to do is query them directly without actually having to load the data. You can do that as well. So as part of this process, you can query using the same DBMS Cloud API. You can in effect just create an external table. So you use the same credential. So once we've set up the credential to the object store, I can reuse that for all of my jobs to that same object store. So again, here I could, if I didn't want to load the channels data, all I wanted to do was create a table, a view over that, an external table, then I use the create external table package. And then once that's run, I can simply say select count star from my external table, and we'll go to the object store, query that, and return the information to you. The difference here, of course, is rather than just having the, okay, this is the table name, here's the file, this is how you're going to process it, we also need to give it a column list. And again, SQL Developer has a very nice interface that allows you to create these external tables, and it'll code all this up for you. I think I'm just going to quickly jump on here. There's a built-in SQL notebook capability here. So if any of you have used the Apache Zeppelin open source project, we've taken that and we've sort of like supercharged it. So we've put a whole new autonomous type infrastructure around that Apache Zeppelin open source project. We've enabled advanced analytics, so you can do in-database data mining inside Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud, and Oracle ML, as it's called, or Oracle Machine Learning, as you'll see as it's branding up the top here. That is your, if you like, your gateway, your web-based gateway, which is free. It's packaged with ADW. That's your gateway into the system. So let's quickly go over here. Oh, can I get some extra messages? Oh, it's 1 hour 30. Okay. Ah, right. Okay. That's cool. So how do we do that? How do I get access to that? So you'll see here, what I've got is manage ML users. And what I do here is, again, I go in with my admin account and we create some users. So I've built some users already. Creating users is fairly straightforward. I can build another one. Let's call it APAC Demo 2. APAC Demo 2. The password, I will use that. Again, you know, there are rules here. Possibly a little frustrating at first when you see you've got to do 12 to 60 characters. Oh my word. Yes, it can get a little frustrating trying to create passwords and remember them that long. When you set up the user, obviously as the admin user when you first come in, this is the user that has the access to come in and create these new users. You distribute the information to those users. You can set up a password, and then you can email the details to them. So I can do that. I can create that user. Just say save that, and then if I go, trying to see if I can now go over and just quickly show you what's going to happen. If I go in here, and you'll get one of these. Let's just get rid of that. So it will say, okay, here's your user, and it gives you a link to sign in. So it's a one-time link. So if I click on here, I can copy this link. I can then go into my browser, and it's going to prompt me straight away to change my password. So we don't, you know, although we set up the password on here when I created it, if you like, that's just my one-time in to get the user in. As far as the user's concerned, you know, they're going to get that email. The first thing that the system's going to do is prompt them. So you can see here the connection string. It's going to prompt them straight away to change their password. So it's all secure. We don't email them, or you can see the password here. It's in clear text. But as soon as they log in, they need to change that password as soon as possible. So once I've got to this point, I can either reuse that URL, come in, change my password, or I can just from here click on this and I'll log in as GKL. So this is my, so what have we got here? Let's just quickly explain all this information. So tenancy points me to my environment, i.e. which is this environment here. So I'm going in as my tenant is ADWC 4PM. That's, if you like, my user-friendly name that goes in here. At the bottom, you'll see there's a unique ID here that gets created, and that's what this relates to. So if you have multiple tenancies, it's switching between, get the tabs right, things like Ashburn, Phoenix will have their own tenancy IDs. So that's the first part, that's my tenancy ID. The database obviously is the database name, and if you want to, you can switch to a different tenancy or a different database by clicking on the pencils. I'll allow you to change that. So now what I need to do is pick one of those, either admin or one of the demo accounts that I set up, put in the password and sign in. And it will bring me straight into my environment. So in here, when you come in, what we'll have is, this will all be blank, obviously, because I've run some queries already to build some notebooks for you. When I come in, I can either run multiple statements or create a very simple SQL statement. So the first thing the system will do, it's now going to start up OML, start up the notebook system. It's going to initialize, and then I'm going to go into the standard what's called Apache workbook. Oh, I think I think this web browsing console is taking up a huge amount of resources, and I'm getting very, very slow response times. Ooh. This is, oh dear. Wow, this normally takes about 3 seconds and it's in. Okay, so maybe let's. Oh, application error. I wonder if this is because of this web console. Okay, let me try. Let me go into notebooks. Sorry about this. So what I want to do is, I'm just going to switch over and let's do this one. Okay. Let's try opening this one. See if I can get in. Okay. Ooh, this looks more promising. Okay. This is good. Right. Okay. Whew. Okay, so what I've done here is I've created a pre-built notebook. I think we might be having problems with trying to run this webcasting software. I think it's hogging a lot of resources on my Mac. Anyway, okay, so what I've got here is a notebook with 2 windows. And what I've used is, let me show the editor. I've created some information here about the schema for you. So you'll be able to get access to this set of workbooks that I've created. There's 2 sets of workbooks that I've created. I'll come to in a minute. One is for the SH schema, based on analytic SQL, so using some analytic features that are inside 18C, some of the new features, and also some of the in-database data mining. So as I said, I've got what's called the Sales Analysis Project group, and this goes over the SH schema. So here's your SH schema. This is the one that we ship with the database. Hopefully you're all familiar with it. You've got things like sales and costs, and you've got a basic star schema. And if you wanted to set this up, you can actually generate this. You can go into SQL Developer Data Modeler. You can generate this whole schema if you want and push that model from SQL Developer Data Modeler directly into Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud if you want to build this yourself in a separate schema. And we have an online tutorial as well that will show you, having got that data model, having built the entities and pushed the tables in, how to then populate it with all the data. So we also provide you with all of the text files, the CSV, comma separated files for building each of these tables. So if you like, that's my overview page. So if I go back to my notebooks, okay, so let's open up one of these. So I pre-built some of these just in case the webcasting software did actually hog up an awful lot of information. Okay, so let's do collect, show, output. So what I've done is with each of these books, you get a little menu at the top here. So here's my title of my notebook. So when I create things, I build them within a notebook, and this is my notebook. The notebook itself, as you will see, has different queries that run in it. Each query is called a paragraph, and you can create paragraphs and you can organize them. So typically, they'll appear one under the other, but there's also an option here to say, okay, you see width. If I click width 6, the standard width is 12 across. So if I create 2 windows of width 6, they'll appear next to each other. If I do width 3, I'll be able to get 4 windows across. So, and they'll automatically organize themselves. If I want to run a query, what you see here is the output. And if I do show editor, you'll see here's my SQL statement. So I've got select, my products, and then my statement here. And then if I want to run that, I can just say, okay, run that paragraph. And it will go off, and that's refreshed it. So if I've got new data, if I've loaded new data, I can very quickly just ask it to go and refresh and fetch me the whole new data. If I've got a whole series of these, let's hide that editor, like this nice dashboard here, I can schedule these workbooks to automatically refresh. So if I'm loading data on a regular basis, I can also set up jobs in ML to automatically refresh my workbooks for me. So having run a query, show the editor, I can execute that. I then get my output, and I can look at this in a variety of ways. So I can look at it in tabular format. I can do line graphs. I can do pie charts, area graphs, and obviously once I do that, I need to be able to change the layouts. What are the groups? What are the keys? What am I graphing? And the settings option will allow you to do that. I can do line graphs and I can do scatter graphs as well. If I want to, I can also download this as a CSV or TSV file and put that away. So you've got quite a lot of flexibility here. So you can do whatever SQL you want, whatever SQL is supported inside the database, I can do here. Now, question is, if you remember going back to SQL Developer, there was 3, if you like, connections that I could have made when I set up my admin account. We had that high, medium, low. How do I know what's going on here? So in the interpreter, so it's refreshed all of those. Now what we should be able to see is, if I go back to my activity up here, you can start to see here 1 AM, things are starting to happen. Queries are starting to run here. I've got some stuff in high, I've got some stuff running in medium, and you can see here what's going on. So I've got application concurrency. I haven't got running statements now. Nothing's getting queued, so I'm using my resources efficiently. So all of that information, if we go back to monitored SQL, if we flick over to here, when I execute specific queries, they're going to come into here, and I'd be able to, I can set refresh off, refresh every 10 seconds, etc. So, oh no, where am I going? I want to be back. Sorry, right back over here. And click on here. Okay. So here I am with my notebooks. One of the nice things about this is we can actually create some really nice interactive reports. So I can actually have things like pull down. So I can scroll through different time periods. So I can go to 2001, I can go back to 1999, I can change to looking at a different product group, and here I'm using window functions to create 3 month, 6 month, 12-month moving averages. So if I show you the editor for this, I'm using window functions here to create averages, moving averages for 6 months, 12 months. And these things, these pull downs that allow me to change the periods, are generated by adding some special text in here. So one of the bindings that you see here is, oh, click on here and go back up here, is this thing, which is markdown language. So that's automatically enabled by default. And what that markdown language allows me to do is create some additional types of input that give my user the ability to interact with the graph. So I can provide my user, if I've got users that don't want to write their own queries but still want to be able to swap between product categories or change the calendar year, etc. I can do that by using the markup language. And there's various things that you can create. You can create pull downs like this. You can create checkboxes. There's various types of input radio buttons as well. And you simply tell the system based on how you set this first element up with the dollar and the curly brackets, and then you tell it either through select or different other keywords how you want that information, what the UI presentation is going to be about, or how it's going to look. And in this case, I've got select calendar year. So that's going to be my input here. And then I give it a default, which is going to be, if I run it, it's going to default to 2000. And then I can say, okay, run as 1998. Like, that's going to get passed into the where clause dynamically, and I want you to call it, when I pull this down, 1998. And the same for product. So I've got select category here, and then I've got electronics as the default, and software other, you can see here, photo. So you can create some very nice interactive reports. And again, you just code this up, and then as soon as you're happy with that, if you don't want the user to see it, you can just hide the editor and it disappears. So that's how we did the overview page. We just simply used, or I just simply used the markdown. And within the markdown, you can, for example, let's go back to the overview. There's a lot of different types of markdown text that you can use. In here, if I show you the editor, I've got, here's my entity diagram. It's gives me a heading here, and then I'm actually going into our documentation for 18C and pulling out this GIF file, which is from our documentation. And I do that by saying, okay, this is going to be using square brackets an image that you're going to pull out, and the image reference is that, and the reference for that is here, and that reference points to this GIF file. So that's, if you like, how we get that. And you'll notice up here I've got a link here to SQL Developer, and I can also go to a tutorial. And again, the Markdown language, this tutorial points to this overview in this folder on oracle.com. So you can embed HTML references, link outs to objects as well. So the Markdown language itself is quite powerful, and you can combine this with your standard SQL code. So it's a nice, rich environment. So let me quickly show you, say, ad hoc analysis. I think this is the one I want. So let me open up the editor on here. So in here, you can see not only have I got a table, but what I can do is switch between dimensions. So I could say, okay, change the whole table. What I want is to go by channel. So I can actually just completely change the whole product, the whole view that I'm looking at. Give me time. Okay, so I'm now viewing the times table, sales, maximum sales averages. How do we do that? You can see the code here. So if I say I want geography, say here, what does geography give me? Geography is this block of code here. So it's going to pass in dynamically the fact that I want region, sub-region, and country name. And then the max, the sum, the max, and the average sales within that. So you can pass the columns that you want directly into that code, as well as, you know, regenerating the details for the type of the dimension value that you want to do, which we saw in the past. And then how does that affect things like group bys and roll-ups, etc.? Well, I can do exactly the same thing again here, and because I select it here, you reuse that same chunk of code, and then that gets passed to the group by and the grouping, and we use grouping ID sets here, etc. So it's really, the Markdown language itself is very, very powerful. And of course, I can also change what I'm doing, what the actual calculation is. So I can switch to, say, doing average. I can do a minimum. So I can change the columns. I can also change the calculation for amount sold that I'm actually going to run, whether it's maximum, minimum, average, standard deviation, whatever it is that you want. You can dynamically change the calculation as well as the reporting columns that you're going to see. And again, this looks quite ugly and complex from a user perspective. So if I was going to publish this to my business users, I'm going to typically hide the code and let them run the code as and how they want to do it. And again, I can just hit run all paragraphs, and it will refresh the table and the graph and reset everything to defaults. So this comes free. You get this free. The nice thing is what we provide you with, if I select this one, is we've pre-built for you a set of machine learning, data mining, in-database data mining notebooks. So let's say, for example, you wanted to do anomaly detection. Again, we've sort of set you up with a template workbook that will explain to you how to go through and set up an anomaly detection within your own data set. So we'll give you, the overview. Okay, what are we using? We're using support vector machines in this example. What we want to do is flag unusual or suspicious records. So I'll give you an example of how to do this. We've got some information here on how to get into documentation. There's some information on GitHub. And then these are the steps. So as you know, with building data mining models, there's a whole series of steps that you typically go through. So what we've done here is set all this up, and you can effectively, for say building your own anomaly detection algorithm, you can just replicate these steps. So typically what we have to do, first thing we're going to do is clean up any data sets that we built with previous runs of the model. So I'm going to drop my supplementary demographics table. What I'll typically do then is go through and create a new one that contains the data sets that I need. So it pulls out the columns from a bigger, wider table that I'm interested in. And there's another one for things like attribute importance that will take you, okay, I've got a very big wide table, hundreds of columns. This is what I'm trying to achieve. Well, which are the most important columns that I would use? So you can look at that algorithm, which will then tell you or guide you as to, oh, okay, if I'm going to take columns out of that table to reuse in other models, these are the columns that are most likely to give me the information that I would need. And then, because I'm building the model, I'll take a quick look at it. This is what the data set looks like. So that looks okay. This is my customer data set from the SH schema. So that looks okay. What I now need is to do some joining of those two tables together. So I need to bring those two data sets together so I can reuse it. So I now create a new table called 360 customers. And if I can get over onto here, and we might just quickly take some key attributes and do a scatter plot just to eyeball, okay, is there anything that stands out here? Are there any obvious groupings? And then we can go ahead and build our support vector machine model. If you're used to doing data mining, you'll recognize the steps that you go through to build it. So here we're just going to create the table, and okay, how many customers, what is the customers that are most likely to be probable fraud customers that may or may not be fraudulent? So again, if we had customers who are creating new accounts, we could use this algorithm either when they create the account or when they start running orders to determine, is this likely to be something that is possibly fraudulent? So the step up here will create that model for me, and you can see, call the data mining package that will create that model for me. Create model, give it the information. These are the columns that I'm going to use. This is the data set. And then we can just simply apply that model over the data set that we've got and that's been built out of that model. And then we can reuse this information in other data sets, and we can then graph it as well. So once you've got this, you can then, if you like, switch over into your BI tool, having created that new table, that customer 360 model table. You can now, having built this through OML, push that over to either your data visualization desktop, your OAC, or your other BI tool. Sort of built notebooks in here that will help you understand, okay, if I want to build my own classification prediction model, these are the steps that I need to run through. This is the type of code that I need to build. You can just cut and paste or import these existing notebooks that we've built, and then just modify them and reuse them yourself very quickly and easily, and then push those out. And you can either then give the user access to the whole model or give the access to just the output, and you can view that either in OML or you can go over into other desktop systems. So all of that sort of information is in here. What happens, okay, so you're running a model or you're running queries, and you want it to go faster. How do you make it go faster? So I said before, and when you look at the management console, you can see whereabouts are we? We need to go back to activity. Let me go back over to here, and let's go back up to my full demo environment, which is this one. Open the service console in here. So let me go to my activity. You can see here 1:15 a.m. Here's all our queries that are running. And if I click on monitored SQL, we should have, okay. So we're still waiting for that to come through. So I've got all of that information there. Supposing that I've got running statements here, I need that. I need those queries to execute faster. What would I do? How would I speed that up? Well, I can do a scale up, and it's simple. So it's going to tell me at the moment I've got 1 CPU. I could say, okay, give me 2 or give me 3. There's no fixed building block here, and I could add storage. So I can do, let's say, okay, update. So I've now scaled it, and it's noticed that this stays green. So let me go over to OML and let me switch back. That's scaling in progress now. Recent projects. Let me go back to sales analysis. Let me quickly go back to ad hoc and load the notebook. So my scaling's still running in the background. I'm adding 3 CPUs, and I can still run queries. Let me go back over here. Scaling is still in progress. So I'm running that. I'm scaling up my CPUs, and I'm still accessing queries. I'm not interrupting my users at all. So there's still, while that scaling is in process, as soon as those CPUs are available, we'll stop charging you for CPUs. So we'll still charge you. The clock's still running for storage, obviously, because we've got the database. We need to be able to keep that storage running. But the actual CPU charges for running the Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud, that would stop ticking, which is pretty good. So all of the screens in here will show you how to do that. Scaling in progress. Once it's finished, as I say, it stays green. Scaling in progress, indicating that the whole system is still online, and then you'll get the confirmation. Okay, you've got your 8 CPUs now and your 16 terabytes of storage, or wherever it is. And I said the management console. So remember when we built the Autonomous Data Warehouse, it comes pre-configured. So if you're used to, as a DBA, maybe you're used to tweaking init.aura parameters, those are offline. Everything's set up pre-configured. The resource groups control how much resources, how your data warehouse workload is managed in terms of memory, parallelism, etc. That's all based on the number of CPUs that you give it. What you can change, obviously, is the NIS settings. Obviously, you'll have different national language setting requirements, and you can reconfigure those or adjust those accordingly to suit your own language setting requirements. But everything else is pre-configured. And you'll notice nothing about table space management either. And when you define tables, you don't tell us, okay, I want you to go into this user table space, this temporary table space, etc. That's all done for you. You can't create or modify table spaces. So this is one of the beauties of the Autonomous Data Warehouse. If you're a DBA, the sort of day-to-day operational stuff that you typically did or currently typically do with a data warehouse, all the stuff that keeps the lights on, creating users, modifying table spaces, adding new data files, patching, upgrading, all of that stuff. The beauty is you can hand all of that back to us and just say, get on with it. And you as a DBA can now concentrate on the really important things. Okay, what type of SQL should we use? How should we optimize this data model? What are the analytics that I can apply to this data set to add value for my business users and give them tables or views that have got really useful columns of data in there, and then publish those out to either OracleML or OAC or data visualization desktop or whichever BI tool you're using. So you can now, as a DBA, focus on not how do I set up, how do I manage, how do I tune all this stuff on a day-by-day basis. All of that, keeping the light stuff on, just goes away. And you can now focus on the real important stuff of the best parts of your job about understanding how to do all the SQL analytics and stuff like that inside the database. We've got compression on. And again, as a DBA, you have to worry about, okay, what type of compression should I use? Should I put it on this table or should I not put it on this table? It's just all taken care of for you. Stats gathering, as a DBA, how many times do you have to keep worrying about, oh, crikey, are the stats up to date? I wonder if that's what's causing SQL problems. It's all done. It's all taken care of for you. As data loaded, we automatically create the relevant stats and make sure everything's up to date. You can definitely go ahead, if there's additional stats that you want to put on there that you think may help the optimizer create the right execution path or the most efficient execution path, you can obviously go ahead and run additional stats, maybe for histograms and things like that, or where columns are correlated, etc. Maybe to just give the optimizer a little bit more guidance on how to build the most efficient plan. If you put in hints, etc., you'll find that the optimizer will generally ignore them. There are some hints that you can explicitly push in that we will reuse and make use of, but generally, the hints get largely ignored. Result cache is on by default, so that is a particular optimization that we've put in that helps with the autonomous performance tuning. The monitoring, as I said, it's a nice, simple, straightforward monitoring tool, and there's a whole set of screenshots in here that will take you through how to set up monitoring. So where do we see this being used? What are the main use cases? If you like this, if you look at Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud as like bringing the self-service model that we've pushed for BI to the database. So you should be able to, with these interfaces that I walked you through today, you'll be able to give this to a business user and say, okay, rather than coming to you and saying, I need some space, I need some hardware, I need a new data warehouse, a data mart, can you build that for me and then let me know when it's available? You can just push them to the cloud and say, go and build it on Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud. 4 questions, doesn't get any simpler than that. So a lot of your business users can probably make themselves self-service. They're going to come to you and say, okay, how can I make this SQL run better? And that's where your skill set comes in as a DBA to help them create the best SQL for execution using the right set of analytic functions. That's still going to be there. You'll still need to be able to help them with that. It's a great place for building sandboxes. If you want to bring in data sets as a data scientist, do some machine learning, statistical analysis on it, you can spin these up very, very quickly. You've got access to in-database data mining. You've got access to all of the analytics inside the Oracle database and all the additional analytics that we've added in 18C. And of course, you can do data lakes. Rather than actually just having to physically load data, you can obviously do that, but you can take all of the new types of data sources, put them in our object store, and then query them directly without having to load them. So you can sort of build that data warehouse model out into more of a data lake and just query across not only our object store, but sort of multiple object stores. So hopefully today, we've got Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud. You can see it's very easy to set up. It's very easy to build. It's very, very fast. Performance is fully optimized. It's fully tuned. It's taking account of all of the Exadata technology. It's taking account of all of the data warehouse optimizations that we've got inside 18C. And we can scale up, we can scale down with no downtime, which is the most important thing. So if you want to build this stuff and you want to be able to change it dynamically for your users, you can do that, and there's no interruption to their service. Okay, that's it. That's the end of the presentation. So let me quickly. Francisco's telling me now he's extended it to 2 hours. Okay, where do we want to go? How about if? Okay, so now I'm now up to. We're scaling up to 3 CPUs. We've now got 3 CPUs. Got 1 terabyte storage. I can add more storage if I want. Let's just do that. Let's add another 2 terabytes of storage. So I can do that independently. Again, if I add storage, it stays up and in progress. So I can still run queries. So what I'll say is, I'm not sure how we're going to do questions in this. Francisco will probably ping me in IM, but I'm happy to take questions. I don't know if that's going to come through the speakers, whether the mics can be open, everybody can ask questions. I'm happy to take that. I can give you some examples of the types of questions that we typically get asked, which are usually around how do I get in? How do I get set up? Are we going to do it by chat? Oh, right, the questions. Okay. Of course, the obvious question then is how do I get into chat, Francisco? I went up to this point. Okay. How do I get started? How can I get into that? And what you can do is try for free. So at the moment, here, 3,500 free hours. And if you sign up for an account, so you create an account, we click on this, and this may look a little scary at first. So we'll ask you for okay, whereabouts do you want to be? We'll ask you for a cloud account name. Is it for personal use or company use? We'll also ask you for credit card details. We do ask you for a credit card, and don't worry about this. We're not going to charge you anything. This is simply for verification. It's just something that we have to do to make sure that you're a bona fide person, and this is not some bot that is just trying to create counts on our system. So we won't charge you anything. I promise you. Once you run out of your time on our platform with the 3,500 hours or 30 days, we just send you an email to say, hey, you're reaching your limit of 30 days, or you're about to run out of credit. Is there something we can do to help you move to an account? So don't worry. I know you put your credit card in here, but I promise you there will be no charges unless you authorize us to make a charge. So you go through this process, you'll get a verification code in SMS. You do that, complete. We'll send you an account login detail, and you're away. And once you're in, if I can go back to here, if I go back to my services, it's not bound to Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud. So if you wanted to say combine Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud with, say, okay, I'd like to do data integration with it as well. Oh, we'll also give you information about upcoming maintenance that we're about to do. So you'll get notifications coming into here. We'll also email you as well. When you set up your account, you effectively become the cloud administrator. So you'll also get notifications, and we have, if you like, as part of the service level agreement, when you move to having a formal paid account, there are certain time limits in which we can do maintenance. So we give you guaranteed, I think it's 99.995% uptime. And in that other time, we will do maintenance, etc. And we'll give you notification of that. So let me close that notification. So when I do create instance, it's not restricting me to just Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud down here. And if I wanted to do something in with Java or Data Integration Cloud or Golden Gate, data integration platform, if I've got Golden Gate and I want to do some synchronization, say between my on-premise system and my Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud, Golden Gate can do that for you. Golden Gate now accepts Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud as a target. You can't set it up as a source, but you can have Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud as a target. Data Integration Platform will also accept Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud as a target. So when you go into these, you'll find this when you create connections. There are specific buttons that say, okay, I'm connecting to an Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud. But you're not, my point here is that you're not limited to just Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud. You can effectively encompass the whole scope of our cloud environment. So you could create Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud and then set up data integration tools in the cloud and start loading data, try and do some tests from data integration platform into Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud. So you get access to the full suite for that £300. And then you'll end up, if we go back here, going back to, if I create my Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud, it'll take me back over to here. How we do? Okay, so I mentioned before something called Object Store. So let me show you that. So I take you into the Object Store, and if I go to here, have we got one in there? No, just gonna wander around and okay. So what I've got here is we've got things called buckets, and when I go into a bucket, that's why, because I need to go to, let me switch over to Ashburn. Here we go. So I have a lot more. So I can do it whichever data center I want to go to. So I'll actually go to Phoenix and set up buckets in there. So depending on where you are, I can load data from my instance in Frankfurt, and I can use data that's in Ashburn. So let's go into my staging area, and you'll see here I have a channels CSV file, and I can upload new objects in here. I can just drag and drop and create files into here, and then I can point to these from SQL Developer and load data in. So what I then need to do is in the object store, in identity, I go into my users. What I have to do is grant my system access to that object store information. So if I want to get access into this CSV file, this in itself, just putting the file here is not sufficient. This is a secure environment. So now I need to authorize things like DBMS_cloud, load data, etc. create external table. I need to be able to grant those tools, those utilities, access to that file. So just simply putting it here is not enough. And I do that by going to the identity cloud, going to my users, that's me, I click on that, and I have an authorization token here. And you can see this is my ADWC lab token. I want to generate a token. What I do is I put a description in here. Let's say welcome one, exclamation mark, welcome one, and this will generate a token. Okay, so that token that's my link, if you like. That's what I'm going to give my credentials. So when I did the create credential, I give it my username. When I did in SQL Developer to create a credential, to say, okay, I'm going to give you access to the object and store. So I do DBMS Cloud, create credential. I'm going to give it the username Keith Laker, and then I give it the token that I just created, and I paste that in. That then allows, if you like, that authorizes for whichever buckets I'm allowed to go into. In this case, my staging, it would allow the system to be able to read that file, channel CSV. So I simply create that authentication token, and I don't have to give that token, I don't have to, if you like, give any other users visibility of that token. I'd simply just say to them, here's the token identifier, my token, if you like, inside, when I've created it inside the database using, say, SQL Developer. I can then just give them that reference inside the database, and they don't need to know about, you know, the fact that it has a username keith.laker at oracle.com, and it has this weird looking password. All of that can be completely hidden by just creating the credential. And then if you go into SQL Developer, it will automatically prompt you for that credential. So that's, if you like, the object store. Putting stuff here allows you, obviously, because I'm in a cloud, when I'm doing a data load, I can do data load cloud to cloud. And, you know, for the fastest performance, because my data is in Frankfurt, obviously it would make the most sense to do a cloud to cloud load inside the data center. So what do we do? If you want to, can I go back over to, I don't know how this is going to work, but I'm just going to try and find something here. No, that's not what I want. I'm just trying to find this, I think. Yes. Aha. Okay. Okay. I'll include this in the set of slides. So just quickly check on chat to see if we've got any questions. Okay. I'm still not quite sure where I find chat, but never mind. Is it on there? No. Okay. We've built a whole workshop here. So I'll include this link, but hopefully you can see it. This GitHub Learning Library. It's brilliant because it'll take you through everything that I've just shown you as well. So we have a whole set of lab guides here, like provisioning and connecting. So all the stuff we just worked through, working with the sample data sets. So I said to you, we have like SSB, like sales history, a whole set of sample data sets. I'll talk to you about, okay, thank you very much. A whole set of provisioning, data loading. How would you do data loading? I forgot we had an hour and a half. It was taking you through days loading, but we have all these really useful data loading guides, and it's all driven. Create target tables. So I'll walk you through how to set all this up. Data loading using the SQL import wizard, and it'll step you through it. So you can see here, actually I'm going to pick one up from my local file system, and it will run through that, do an insert, or you can create a script, loading data from the object store. So there's a new wizard, and you'll see here, okay, when you go to the data import wizard, if you've got the latest 18.1, you'll see when you pull down the source, there's not only local file that's object store, and then we have this URL format that you can point it to, and here's my object store credential. So all I have to do is give my users access to that object store credential object, and we're away. They don't need to worry about, hey, which bucket is it in, what's the username, what's the password. Just give them access to that credential. SQL developer will automatically pick it up for you, and they can cite that, and you can just go through it, okay? And it magically connects to the object store. SQL developer does, picks up that file, reads it, and as far as you're concerned, it's like having a file sitting on your local file system. You can interact with it in exactly the same way. Set up, you can, there's various options that you can run through, and it looks exactly the same. It works in exactly the same way. You get to the end. The nice thing here is with the latest version 18.1, you can actually test this. So there's like a test button. So rather than you sort of hitting, okay, go, and it's saying, oh, guess what, all my records were bad, we'll allow you to do a quick test, say on 100 rows or 1,000 rows, and you can check to see, okay, yeah, that's fine, before you finally click, okay, go off and load the data. And of course, with SQL Developer, the really nice thing here is that you can just throw that into the background and get on and do other things. So it does give you the option to do that. So this is, if you like, the overview page. As I say, we've got data loading. If we want to build a data lake and create external tables, we have a whole lab on how to do that. Managing and monitoring, if you're a DBA and you want to know, okay, what is it I need to do? How do I stop and start? How do I recover an instance if I want to go back over time? How do I monitor performance? There's a nice scaling demo that we provide. And there's a whole stuff here on machine learning, using predictive analytics. If you've got access to a Windows system, you can, we'll show you how to do data visualizations, connecting with data visualization desktop, and we give you licenses for that. So you can use that. And then also for things like Data Integrator, Golden Gate, Enterprise Data Quality, how to integrate those into Autonomous Data Warehouse. So if you're like building out, getting you more into a point where, okay, I've got a system that's running, how would I set up and build a complete data warehouse ecosystem with Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud at the center? So we've got labs on that as well, and we're adding to these labs each week. And when we first started this, I think we stopped at 700. We've now got one for machine learning. We've got one for data visualizations. I think there's a new one coming on data pump, and so on and so forth. So this, I'll include this link to this huge library in the PowerPoint slides when I get to it. There'll also be links to other content that we have. Let me go back over here. Oops, back over here. So did I get, if I go back to cloud.oracle.com/warehouse, this will take you to, hopefully, data warehouse page. If you want information on pricing, how much does it cost to run Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud? As I say, we price storage per month, but we do CPUs per hour. Hence, you can turn them off. that's how we're able to do that, by charging you separately for. Oh, my UI has. There we go. There's some really good documentation. So if I click on here, we'll take you into our user assistance environment. This is our UA portal, and we've got tutorials in here as well, linked into the documentation that will walk you through doing various tasks. And possibly, if we click on this one, if I do that one, if you're a DBA, if you scroll down here, there's all the typical DBA tasks, and then there's, if you're a DBA, this is probably, if you go to the appendices, this is probably the area that you most want to look at. There's things like the package DBMS Cloud that will take you into sort of the whole background. I know DBAs love to script things rather than go through tools like SQL Developer where everything's wizard driven, so we give you all the access to that. If you're wanting to understand, okay, what's going on, what are the restrictions, these are the parameters obviously that you can modify, and there's certain restrictions in here. So as a DBA, this is probably the first place to go for, is to understand exactly what you can and can't do that you would normally do, say, with an on-premise database, because this is an autonomous environment where we're taking control and trying to manage as much as possible in terms of the sort of the keeping the lights on stuff that you would typically do in your on-premise system. So consequently, there are certain things that we take control of that you don't need to be concerned about on a day-to-day basis, giving you the chance to spend more time looking at, let's say, more business focus, more business value add stuff, rather than extending table spaces and adding more data files. So that's the documentation. As I say, you can get to that. If you want to look at the machine learning documentation, there's a whole stack on here. Quick start tutorials running you through ML, which is pretty good. That's pretty much it, actually. There's obviously all sorts of additional stuff, which if you want to provide sort of input for your users, they want to get some information about how to use the product, and you want to hear about some of the people who are currently using it. There's all the usual marketing stuff that we have on here. There are some additional capabilities. Oh, this is slow today. Waiting for cloud, I think. I'm just going to let you. Certification matrix is probably the most important thing. Which third-party tools, which Oracle tools are already pre-configured and set up to connect to Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud. So that's a good PDF, excuse me, to reference. Yeah, I shall leave it at that. That's also a good one to look at. I think it's by Maria. As a DBA, don't see this as okay, we're taking over everything that you do. What we want to do is make you more useful, make you a lot more productive. And this is a good article by Maria Colgan that sort of explains the changing role that Autonomous can do for you as a DBA, in terms of freeing you up to concentrate on the more business value add things, giving you time to work out, okay, what is all the new stuff that we put into 18C in terms of analytics, and how can you leverage those types of things. So that's a really good article to look at. I'd recommend that one to you, and I'll put that in the deck. So I must be almost out of time by now. So that is about it, unless there are any questions, which I'm happy to take. Oh, crikey, Connor's on my session as well. So one thing I will say, because I know right at the beginning, when I looked at it was a bit of a panic, because I thought, if I go to slide 1, oh crikey, I've got to do this 3 times. I noticed that we've got some sessions that are going to run again. So if you're on the recorded session that I've got, obviously asking Q&A is going to be slightly challenging. So feel free to reach out to me, while this recording is running, with any questions. I can't guarantee I'll get back to you in real time, but I will get back to you. So whichever of these, email, Twitter, via the blog, whichever makes most sense for you, just reach out, and I will do whatever I can to answer any questions and support you. So if we have no questions, which I don't think we do, 2 replays, okay. Yep. So as I say, if you want a replay, just reach out to me, and I'll see what I can do if I'm online. No questions. Excellent. So at this point, I will say I think it's afternoon for most of you. I'll say good afternoon or good morning, and I'm on again, I think, with another overview later on Autonomous Data Warehouse as part of this ongoing live session. And then I've got some more sessions on, if you, as part of Autonomous, if you want to know more about analytics. I've got 2 other sessions coming up on SQL pattern matching. If you've got 12C and you're not aware that we do SQL pattern matching, get to Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud and you have more time to find out about all these great features that we add. I'm doing a session on pattern matching and fraud analytics, and also another one on an 18C specific feature, which is polymorphic table functions, which again, you'll be able to leverage with Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud. So that is it. Thank you very much and have a great day.